All right, good morning, everyone, and welcome back to session 2. You should be able to see on your screen today's agenda and a few basic reminders. I'm going to hand it right over to Dr. Johnston to set the context and introduce our speakers.
Thanks, Sarah. Welcome back, everybody. It's good to see you all again. I was really energized by the first session. I thought it was really exciting to connect with a lot of you. And I really appreciate the engagement of everyone. I also wanted to thank on behalf of the team, those of you who did the evaluation. We really appreciated that feedback, and we hear you. We're working on how to respond to that and incorporate some of the ideas you had into how we are running things. Today, the structure will be pretty similar to last time, as you can see in the schedule here. One piece of feedback that came through was trying to come up with some examples or things to work through in the small groups. And I really encourage you guys to think about examples from your own experience or what you're working on this summer that you might want to bring up in that setting to get some feedback from your peers and faculty. But don't want to spend too much time previewing stuff, but today we're going to explore the community engaged research principle of strong community academic partnership and also the principle of capacity building. You'll hear plenty about this. I will just give a brief and probably not quite so perfect metaphor. I will say that a strong community academic partnership is the engine that drives community engaged research, and capacity building is how both partners learn how to drive. And I'll let the experts talk more about that. As always, these principles are best illustrated with an example, and we've got an awesome, a really stellar partnership here to share with you today. I'm delighted to introduce today's community academic partnership. We have Dr. Syed Ahmed. He is a family physician, a professor of family medicine, and the senior associate dean for community engagement, as well as associate provost at MCW. And we have Mr. Otis Winstead. He is a military veteran, a committed partner, deeply committed to working with the veteran community. He is the executive director of the Great Lakes Dry Hooch Incorporated Center that works with veterans. He has worked with various faculty at MCW and staff. Dr. Ahmed and Mr. Winstead partnered up on the PROMPT project most recently, which stands for Prevention of Opioid Misuse Through Peer Mentoring. And I will, with that, I will turn it over to our experts today.
Good morning, everyone. I'm glad to not see you all, but you are behind the screen. I welcome both students from Medical College of Wisconsin and University of Nebraska. And with me, as Brian explained, Otis will be my partner. We'll have some dialogue over next maybe 20-25 minutes. And crucial piece in community engagement is willingness to dialogue with your community partner. It is not one-sided game, and that is the biggest challenge for any other research. Community engagement intentionally is created with partnership, dialogue, discussion. So we'll have in first 20-25 minutes some discussion on the both topic, what Brian just mentioned. If I may have the very first slide.
So I'm thinking that hi everyone, my name is Otis Winstead. I'm the executive director of Great Lakes Dry Hooch. But for the next 25 minutes or so, I'm just Otis, okay? That's real important, and that's real important to your partners. You know, I'm just Otis. I'm going to take this whole executive director piece off of it. Just call me Otis. If, you know, when at some point you get to, we get to dialogue.
In the same token, as Otis said, I am just Saeed, but Otis refuses to call me just Saeed. He called me Dr. Saeed. So I'll let him do whatever he wants to do. So well, can I have, go ahead, Otis.
I was going to say, so one of the things that happens is that I call Dr. Syed, and he's been telling me for a long time to call him Syed, and I may at some point get there. But I always remember that he's called a doctor for a reason, you know, and that's not something that I automatically did. He's earned my respect, okay, over the last 2 years. He is a doctor, you know. It's not like, and I'm not going to get into this really deep, it's not like we're going out and we're playing softball together or anything like that, but we have a really strong relationship as we talk about community engagement. And in that relationship, I think we're going to be talking about how that all comes about.
Thank you, Otis. Sarah, do you have the first slide?
Are you not seeing it on your screen?
No, I'm not seeing anything, but so hard for me to know if there's a first slide is there or not. The one with the zip code is more important than the genetic code. Is it on?
Yes, I have that up.
Okay, I cannot see it, but let me keep on talking just a couple of minutes. In the meantime, hopefully I can see the other slides. So we'll not use the slide as much, but this very first slide, you're looking at zip code is more important than genetic code from the RWJ Foundation. If you remember our first two presentations, very first overview and the very first one in the last week, some way we discussed social determinants of health, health equity, health disparity, interconnectedness of those concepts, and how community engagement can really advance the ultimate health outcome, especially for folks who are having major challenges in their health outcome. Usually the folks live in certain zip codes, people of color. So today's discussion will not focus the background, which we discussed before, but we will more focus on how we really make community engagement effective. And to make it effective, you have to follow some principles. Without following some principles, you will not have the guideline or a roadmap on how to move it forward. So what I would suggest is we'll go through the principles, and Sarah, if you have the next slide, let me know.
Yes, it's there.
Okay, so if you look at the slide in here, there's 5 major principles. They are all actually embedded in values. I think one of the articles describes those. But what I would suggest in here is we are going to mainly focus on the last 4, the defining community and program scope. I think we did talk some way in the past. But in the last week, we talked about the equitable power and responsibility, which was discussed. Today, we're going to cover 2 other principles, the strong community academic partnership and capacity building. As Otis and I discuss, we'll talk about back and forth, what does it mean to me as academic? What does it mean to Otis as community partner? So you'll see, and based on basically our work with Prompt, we have many different programs Medical College has over the last so many years, actually in hundreds now. But we'll try to focus on our relationship and work through some dialogue. So we'll focus again, number 2 and number 4 in the slide you are looking at as the principles. Next slide.
It's there.
Thank you. So this is the there are 3 questions in there, and we'll have a discussion about it. What does a strong means? Why a strength of a partnership is important? And how do you do that? The critical issue is this. Partnership is not just collaboration or just participation. people have done many collaboration. Collaboration is not a negative term, positive term, but people do not have to become a partner with each other to do certain things. People can collaborate without becoming partner. You can participate also without becoming partner. The community engagement requires you to actually build on a partnership, and that cannot be a weak partnership. You have to keep on creating very strong partnership, because during the time of need, you'll find out that the strength of the partnership becomes critical. So basically, when you talk about strong, it means you have a very trusted relationship you have built, which takes time, but it is built on understanding each other's, say, needs, goals, assets. You are also you're dealing with each other in a respectful manner and really value each other. Those all things build trust. So one of the things what you keep on hearing from us is trust. Trust is the crucial ingredient or soul of community engagement, if you like to say. And there is a saying called community engagement is built on the speed of trust. And that's what it is.
Yeah, you know.
So go ahead. What is
yeah, I was about to say, yeah, because you know, I think it's really important to just mention, because the overwhelming result of any engagement is going to be built on trust. But you know, I was just thinking about, and I thought about it for a while. You know, you never assumed trust, and I think sometimes professionals do that. Don't assume trust. You know, you never did that, and anybody in your team, as far as I could see, has never done it either. Because when you do that, I think inherently you set yourself back, you know, for not being able to get the kind of information you may need, or whatever your outcomes may be a little bit different. So I'm just saying, don't assume that trust exists because you're the professional. That's all, you know, in reference to that.
So if I could ask Otis, from your end, as you just said, very critical point, but from your end, why it is important to have a very strong partnership, a strong relationship? Why, in what way it becomes crucial?
Well, it becomes crucial in a lot of ways, but the most profound ways, and I'm going to give examples in a little bit, but you know, as a community partner, and a community partner really just means a group of individuals in the community, you know, because we're all individuals. But the thing is that when we talk about that, we talk about establishing some type of trust. And one of the ways that you do that is by validating. See, I can't be your partner if you're not going to validate, you know, my presence. And you can do that through that collaboration, you know, and the medical college has done that quite well with dry hooch, you know, validating it, you know, and what that looks like is like questions come up as a professional. What has happened with the medical colleges is they've identified the issue, whatever it may be, and they share their experience. And not to prolong it, but it always means take off the hat and talk to me in a language that I can understand. And that's just a human language.
So other thing I would say, I think what is that during the time of crisis, actually your partnership get tested. So Otis would know, for the prompt program, we have been there for about 3 years now, but about a year ago, we faced a serious crisis, and community engagement program doesn't always go in a straight line. You have ups and downs. Sometimes some of them are quite significant, and that is, sometimes you can control. Some of those things are very hard to predict and control. But anyway, we lost a couple of crucial persons from our program, from collective program, meaning that prompt program. And if you lose some key players, it has a tremendous impact. And that is the time, sometime I have seen happens is many partnership really breaks down because people started questioning, it is going to sustain or not, blaming each other, for example, or many other way people think it is not going to last.
Yeah.
We didn't do that. So go ahead, Otis, how did we address it?
Yeah, you know, like, you know, we had our situation, I guess maybe a year ago. See, what had happened before that situation, and losing any members of a team that were as vital as they were, and everybody's vital, everybody's allocated. But what had happened in the beginning was that partnership was built on just not one or two people. It was built on the whole team. That's how Dry Hooch substantiated, because we were able to go and say, well, we didn't have to say anything, you know. If there was a strong partnership there, and all those folks were key players, it sustained itself because of the other 4 or 5 players, or whatever it was, that were involved with the partnership. That's how it sustained, you know. And it all comes out of trust again. It all came out of the fact that there had been a strong trust that had been established there, and not taking anything away from those 2 players that left, but medical college obviously had some experience in this area, and we were able to come together in the beginning, so it wasn't really an issue.
Yeah, great. So in the same token, the people also need to know how to do it. You know, it is sometimes easier said than done. Just like any individual relationship with your friend or anyone you can think of in your life, it is a process. You do not build relationship in one day and it lasts a whole life. You continuously work towards it. Community engagement projects are more complex because there's multiple people, multiple organizations involved. And you have to be really deliberately working towards that, keeping the genuineness and the trust going, and build the relationship. So it is not a one and done deal. Once you build trust, you can move on. No, it is a continuous process. What do you think about that?
Well, you know, that's a really good question, because now it's my turn to ask you a question, Syed.
Sure.
Syed. Okay, so let me ask you this. So, you know, we've been talking about the community partnership from a community partner side, Dry Hooch. How did you perceive that breakdown? You know, that wrinkle.
Yeah.
I'm just going to ask you, how did you perceive that? What did you think was going to happen?
Yeah. So personally, I can say that because this is one of my projects in my later part of my life. So I've been doing community engagement for more than 30 years. So if you asked me many years ago if I had this situation, I would have a most probably different reaction and more, should I say, fear or concern that we will not be able to handle it. But over time, when you go through lots of projects with lots of different kind of outcome and challenges, you become a little bit better in handling it. So internally, I had lots of faith that we have some skill and capacity, and we have created a collectively good team. So even we lost few people who are critical, but as you said, everybody is critical, but we will be able to overcome it. So I was actually, I didn't say that, but in my mind, I thought, yes, I think we'll make it. But I wanted to work with everyone to contribute to so that happens. And one other thing I would say though I have experienced a lot on this area, every community engaged program is different. And you'll be surprised, all your learning sometimes gets challenged by a new wrinkle. So yes, I was concerned, but not concerned to the end that we'll not be able to make it. So if that answers your question.
Well, in a way it does, but it speaks to, you know, you know, in this conversation, Dr. Syed, back to that again, but you speak to the team, and you speak to the community engagement team at the medical college. But how did you look at your partners? You know, what did you, I mean, like at that point, you know, you got to think, well, you got to think something. And what did you think at that point in this situation here? Yeah,
so I think, again, good thing is we started having the relationship even longer with the Dry Hooch before the prompt, before even this project. So that actually has a lots of trust built in by some other faculty who has worked with the Dry Hooch. That doesn't hurt, that actually helps. And from my own knowledge, because of learning about Dry Hooch, knowing about it, making partner, knowing you and knowing some other people from Dry Hooch and the Mental Health of America, I felt that yes, we will be able to overcome it because there are people in here vested in this outcome, and they were going to just started saying, why didn't you think about somebody who's going to leave? You understand? So those are the things I already sensed. We are in a very different place from the experience and my understanding of the partners. I was very positive. Let's put it this way.
Good. Thank you.
Thanks to both of you. I am going to move us to the next slide about capacity building, just to make sure we stay on time.
Okay.
Okay.
Tell me when you're seeing the
All
slide.
set.
All set? Thank you, Sarah. So next principle we'll talk about is the capacity building. So I would like you to think about, who are coming into this field, this is one of the least discussed, least taught principle. Because people do program and they think that we just do the program, that will be it. They do not think that your program in community engagement should move you positively toward something where people didn't have it before, they learned because of the project. For example, let me just go ahead and say, what do I mean? So for me as an academic, so I am a physician, I take care of opioid patients all the time. So I have some knowledge of opioid and opioid crisis. But I had less knowledge about veterans' health and veterans' challenges of all different kinds, including trauma and also opioid crisis itself affecting very negatively. So if you ask me last 2-3 years, I actually read up, learned many things, plus talking to OTs, talking to other veterans, talking to our partners in many different shape and form. I learned quite a bit. And I think that's me. I'm just giving a simple example. My capacity has changed in this field because of this partnership. So that is one thing. For the community partner, it could be different. And I'm going to ask Otis from his end, what does the capacity means and how it changed for Otis or Drywood?
Yeah, so Dr. Syed, so that, this is probably one of the most rewarding parts of being a partnership, right? Because you get the benefit of professional education and knowledge without going to school for it. Okay, and what that means is that once you build that trust, which is the foundation for these types of relationships. When we talk about the PROMPT program and we talk about trauma-informed care or influences or the other modulars, veterans inherently, particularly combat veterans, are people who don't trust very well. So it's hard to get information to them that that they're going to digest, right? Mm-hmm. But when you talk about capacity building, and I went off a little bit, but when you talk about capacity building, the ability for the partnership, in this case, the medical college, the engagement team, to transfer information to dry hooch as it relates to opiate use, right? Disorder use. The ability for them to do that effectively, and then for our peer support team to be able to digest that information and pass it on, that's profound, because it stops a lot of the asking why. You can appreciate that. And even when we talk about private physicians, physicians have a lot of knowledge and power, in the years they've gone to school and whatnot, and to have the ability through that trust to that information to be passed on to their clients or their patients, as what has been done with this partnership, is profound because it can stop stuff. It can stop stuff like COVID-19, and it's all coming through this capacity building, and it means it's spreading out horizontally and diagonally into the community. You have that power to do that. I see it every day now, so I animate that because, or I animate my conversation or my tone because this is profound for us to be able to go out into the community and talk about opiate misuse disorder, right? In a really way that has credible information and knowledge that comes from the professionals.
If I can add to that, Otis, one of the things we created jointly together, something called QRF manual, which has the module which was, I think Otis was mentioning. We created multiple modules as a train the trainer model. And I would say that also, we didn't create it just by our academic group. Our community partner, I'm talking about Otis and other folks, really contributed to it. It is like a co-authorship, co-creation. And that is the part, if you don't let community partner do that, you just actually hampered their growth, their capacity. So that is a crucial piece, that when you create something, anything, really work with your community partner in your communication, your presentation, your publication, you're doing a class, doesn't really matter. You have to do that. That is the way people actually grow. Otherwise, people can get one-sided control and knowledge expands, but the other side stays exactly where they were.
Yeah.
Any comment, Otis? Yeah.
I'm sitting here thinking about it, but I'm listening, and I think that you're on point. I think, here again, my question to you, Dr. Syed, is that you understand, and we both understand the collaboration effort and how you need to validate, this is important, how you need to validate the community or your client or your patient. That's like real important for them to become a part of that, right? But I guess my question to you is, do you really learn anything out of that partnership as far as being the professional or being on the other side of the aisle? Do you really learn anything from that partnership?
Absolutely. If I didn't learn anything, then I think I must probably negatively affected my own growth. As I said, for example, veterans health. I'm a physician, I've taken care of veterans, but I didn't have any real knowledge. I have book knowledge, and book knowledge can go so far. Same thing about opioid affecting certain population differently. And most importantly, how, through even talking to you many times and talking to others, how you interact with other veterans, how you really train the peers. And we are creating a book, but ultimately implementing in a way which is appropriate, accessible for the people who are going to use it. I saw that through the interaction and dialogue, the focus group. Those are all very enriching. Some of those things you can really put a number on it, but those are the things ultimately helps you grow. So absolutely, every program I have done in my life, I learned something, many of them pretty hard way when it didn't go well, but many of them went well, I still learned. So that's what I'm talking about.
Okay, Dr. Syed, one last question for you, right?
Okay.
Have you learned that the Green Bay Packers cannot beat the Pittsburgh Steelers? Have you learned that? Have you learned that?
No.
Okay, I just wanted to know.
No, I can tell you I have not learned that, and I think it is the other way around. The Green Bay Packers will beat Pittsburgh any day. So now,
well, we can agree to disagree then, right?
Okay, we'll do that. Let's keep it there. So I think we'll be both happy about it.
Okay, thank you.
And on that note, I think we will wrap up, and I really appreciate both of you sharing some of your experiences. Now we are going to transition into our breakout sessions, and just to set the context, everyone will be in the same group that they were in last week with the same facilitator, with the exception of cohort 3, who was with Dr. Nelson last week. You'll be with Dr. Ahmed and Otis Winstead this week. And at this point, I believe that Kelsey will transition everybody, and then we'll come back together at the end.
All right. Hi, everybody. I'm Dr. Ruffalo, and I think I'm gonna assume that we're all back. I think Sarah's pulling up our next screen. How are we doing on time here? All right, so we're gonna debrief a little bit and just share some of our key takeaways from each of the breakout groups. I'm happy to share a couple of our discussion points and findings from group number 1. So one of the things that we talked about, and I kind of launched our discussion by framing it from this idea of, and so forgive me, I'm going to get just long-winded here for 1 minute, but when Dr. Ahmed and Otis were talking about team fluctuations and staff turnover and partnership turnover in your partnerships, one of the things that I shared with my group was this need to have flexible and agile partnerships that can accommodate those fluctuations. And one of the things that one of my community partners shared with me was this idea of what is called the spirit canoe. And it's this idea that to have a strong community academic partnership, not everybody always has to be on your canoe at all the time. And you have to build your partnership, again, to be flexible and agile enough where throughout the 1 year, 5 years, 10 years of your partnership, some people are going to get off that canoe at some times, and they should. Like that's okay. And they may need to come back in a couple years later. Some people may need to be in that canoe the whole time to hold it together. And so again, just this idea of, who has to be on that canoe at any given moment throughout the longevity of the partnership, and having a partnership that's savvy enough to recognize that. So that's kind of how we opened our conversation. And then we largely talked about transformation in medical student education to introduce concepts of community engagement earlier. And so a lot of our conversation really situated around the need for community engagement to be integrated right away into that M1 first semester medical school experience. And it was really brought up the idea of not having our faculty really lead those conversations, but having community voice represented and up front in front of our medical students, sharing those messages. And so we talked a lot about what that could look like, how we could thread community engagement through the medical student education experience, how you build that into preclinical work. And what was really interesting is one of our group members talked about as step 1 moves to a pass-fail here, how that could maybe alleviate some of the pressure that our students, that all of you feel to, have the good grades, have the good step scores, and that maybe this will free up some of your mental energy to pursue these topics of community engagement that you're passionate about. So I'll pause there. How about group 2? Dr. Johnston, what were some of your main takeaways?
Yeah, thanks, Leslie. We took a different track, I think, than you did. So which is all right. We talked first. A few themes came up around kind of approaches or ways to establish a strong community academic partnership, and a few of those were setting clear expectations early on about the intentions of everyone involved and what they're able to provide to the partnership, having humility when approaching the community and partnerships, and using language that, as was brought up with Otis and Dr. Ahmed, language. I think there was a word, a human language that makes sense to everyone involved. Then we spent some time describing and kind of brainstorming around ways to build capacity and build strength to community academic partnerships. There was a couple that came up, a community-focused clinic that was having some trouble getting word out and getting patients to be involved, and then there's a diabetic retinopathy screening program at a community center that was kind of mid-stage at this point, and we spent some time brainstorming about how to build some capacity for the community and the patients who are involved there.
Great, thanks, Dr. Johnston and group 2. All right, for group 3, Dr. Ahmed and Otis, could you guys share a couple key takeaways from your group?
Otis, I think go ahead, please. You are mute.
Otis, you're on mute. Could you unmute Otis? Thanks.
Okay, there you go.
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay, yeah. So one of the things that our group did is that we drilled down kind of on what that looks like. You know, you talk about community engagement and partnerships. What it really looks like is kind of like what we did. You know, I was talking to Carlos. He kind of has an understanding of it, right? So we're engaging. Alicia, she had a real good understanding of what actually, I mean, her philosophy behind it was like, she understood the importance of it. And she spoke directly to personal relationships that she has, and it's not too far off from that, you know? So that was great. Karma, we actually did some community engagement, and I call it peer support work, where we were able to actually bond in that session. And that was some great stuff. We really drilled down. Megan, coming from a minority, like a minority population like myself, she had a really good understanding of communication and how important it is that the partnerships be able to communicate back and forth in, which is awesome. And I think, Nate was the guy who actually has already participated in peer support out in Nebraska, where he had a group and they weren't actually performing an engagement, and he understood they had to change the strategy. He got to a more of an informal type of strategy, and I was delighted whenever he talked about it, you know, whatnot. But overall, it was just about, you know, for me, and I think the group, it was just about being able to actually do it, and we were able to do that. So I was real happy with that.
Great. Thank you so much, Otis, Dr. Ahmed, and Team 3. So in closing, one thing I just want to share from our group. So Sarah O'Connor was in my breakout group, and she shared another key lesson from the Milwaukee Prompt Project between Otis and Dr. Ahmed. So this MCW Dry Hooch partnership. And she said that one of the things that this particular partnership did well was that when we lost a key MCW staff person, and we're going to hire for that new position, Dry Hooch had a seat at that table in the interview process to hire that new position. And I wasn't aware of that. And I just said, wow, I thought that was really cool. And what made me think is a strong community academic partnership, one that is interested in building capacity, bi-directional capacity, is one that acts intentionally and thinks about the unusual, perhaps unusual ways to involve and to work collaboratively. And I thought that was a really great example. So I hope as you leave this session today, you just think about that intentionality and that creativeness to really include your voices of your community partners and the academic partners in every step of the work that you're doing together. So thank you all for your time today. We're gonna close out our summer immersion series next week, talking about our last principle here around effective dissemination, and that will be led by myself and Dr. Brian Johnston, who many of you have seen our faces throughout this program. Sarah, do you have any last messages for our students before they sign off?
My only message is we will share the recording. We'll have another survey, so would love your feedback. And thank you very much for attending, and to Otis and Saeed for presenting. And this is in a week and a half, yep. July 9th. So we'll see you then.
Okay, great. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Otis and Dr. Ahmed.
Yeah, all right.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.